the day before I start this new job, right? The type A planner has the year planned out. I'm ready to rock and roll. I left my husband downstairs hugging my daughter, right? He was cuddling her on the couch. I went up to take a nap and I hear glass break downstairs. And I had no idea, but that glass breaking was literally the unraveling and shattering of my entire life and what I knew.
Hey, it's Stephanie Ferrara, your Empowered Creativity Coach. Welcome to the Empowered Creativity Show. As a project manager in the corporate world, I grew to a point where I knew that I was born for more and I needed to get out. After an accident in 2017, I had my chance. As a Christ-centered business coach, I help women in the early stages of their coaching practice build group coaching programs and online courses for increased profit and impact. Hey, Ashley, thank you so much for joining me on the Empowered Creativity Show. So glad you are here. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm so glad to be here. It's like a girlfriend chat. I'm ready to go. My name is Dr. Ashley Wellman. And had you asked me, what do you do? Who are you? I think even 2.5 years ago, I probably would have had a very different, concise answer. But I'll tell you the long and the short of it is that I've been incredibly blessed to be a criminologist and someone who works with families of violent crime. And so my professional life has really entailed being a college professor, been in a couple different institutions, and working with families who have been impacted by homicide and sexual assault survivors. And so I have met through that process of hearing these lived experiences and working with survivors of violent crime or families affected by violent crime. I've been so lucky to hear these stories of hope and resilience and determination, right, in the midst of absolute trauma. And one of the things that I get to do is use my platform to kind of share their stories and try to get more awareness and more resources for those families. Never in a million years would I tell you that their hope and their resilience helped me in my own life, nor would I have said this college professor who does research and writes scholarly articles would one day be a children's book author. And here we are.
Yes, it is amazing the path that we end up on, right?
Absolutely. And sometimes it's not the path we choose, which we'll get into.
That's right.
Yeah, but it's a journey.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, we can plan it, but man, we don't usually end up where we planned.
No, I'm a planner too, Steph. I swear there's been multiple times I've had, okay, plan X, right? And then plan Y.
Yes,
I've been trying to
exactly.
regroup and make plans. And I'm starting at age 36 to start allowing some kind of grace on myself and saying like, okay, Ash, life is not going to be something you can dictate, but it is something that you can like try to shape how you approach it and tackle this chapter.
Yes, exactly. So you mentioned that like never in a million years would you think that you would end up writing a book. Yes. And especially a children's book. Especially a children's book. So, and I know that you have a pretty incredible story full of, well, I will let you tell it, because how you got here definitely is not a path that you chose.
Absolutely. So I'll start by saying this. With everything I've been through, I'm still pretty darn blessed, right? And there's a couple of reasons why, but I'll tell you, I had the kind of idyllic life is what it felt like when I'd say about 4 years ago, right? I had just had my daughter with my incredible husband, Buddy. We had a little girl, Reagan. I had just gotten tenured at my university. And so that's like the holy grail of work, right? And I really had, the dynamic with Buddy was so great because I really had full permission just to be Ashley, right? If you can't be home to make dinner or eat dinner, that's okay, go. If you need to get out and go interview people, go do it. And so much of my success was because of the family unit I had at home. And just the love and support I had. Like I felt fearless because of my family. And then in 2016, we were the couple that naively thought if baby one's easy, baby two is going to be easy too. Like, let's just start trying this. And so we not only tried, but were successful getting pregnant a second time. And then I would suffer 4 miscarriages back to back to back to back. And so for me as a planner, my table to be complete, my dinner table, I felt needed 4 people sitting at it, right? I could picture my husband and I with our 2 little ones. And so miscarriages alone are devastating. It's the journey of each one was very different for me. And the first one was just kind of like, okay, I'm a statistic. This is awful. Then it became, number two became kind of more of a, like, no way is this happening again? It's not supposed to happen again. And then by three, I was just like angry. And then by four, I was just lost. I was just done.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that helped throughout that was even when I was pushing them away through that process, because I didn't want to hug on my little one. I didn't want to love on my husband. Do you know what I mean? They didn't let me push them away, and they were there and they hugged on me and they loved on me. And I remember one day Buddy said, look, Ash, you're so successful on the books in your job. You're an amazing mother and wife. It doesn't matter the rest of this stuff, right? But you need to be happy. And so he really encouraged me just to kind of dive into a new job. He's like, give up what you've got, right? Which is silly in academia. Give up security and tenure because it hasn't brought you the happiness it deserves. And let's just move. Let's just move. I'll go wherever you need to go. Reagan and I will be fine. So he gave me the courage to kind of get back out there. And I did. I sacrificed not just tenure, but I actually really dove into a career where I started at ground zero, where someone with a master's degree could have the position that I took on, but I was in a place that I thought I was gonna be happy. And that really had been the fight that Buddy had asked me to do. And so the day before I start this new job, right, the type A planner has the year planned out. I'm ready to rock and roll. I left my husband downstairs hugging my daughter, right? He was cuddling her on the couch. I went up to take a nap and I hear glass break downstairs. And I had no idea, but that glass breaking was literally the unraveling and shattering of my entire life and what I knew. I went downstairs and my husband was lying in the hallway, gasping for air. And it looked like he was having a seizure. And so I remember grabbing onto him, just screaming like, Buddy, wake up. And he's like, what's happening? And then I said, I got to get a phone, right? So I ran upstairs to get the cell phone. And by the time I come back down, my 4-year-old is now looking on to her father not being able to breathe. And she's screaming, please save my dad, help my dad. And I'm screaming, I don't know what to do. She'll tell you now, the question she asked me now is like, Mom, why weren't you crying in that moment? Like you were just screaming. And I was just terrified of what was happening. And so the fire truck and the ambulance came and they told me that he was going to be okay because he had a heartbeat. And they said, Ashley, just hang on. He's going to be okay. Get your daughter out of here. You need to calm down. And so I kept holding on to this idea. He has a heartbeat. He's going to be okay. And all I could think of is, what will I say to him when he wakes up? Which is probably going to have some curse words in it and then a lot of love in it. But I followed the ambulance to the hospital and they worked for 60 minutes to do CPR because he had lost his heartbeat. And I was just screaming for him to live. And I remember the moment the doctor at 4:30 p.m. on August 12th of 2018 screamed, stop, enough. And it took me aback because I was like, I'm not going to stop. I'm fighting for his life. Like, I'm not going to stop. And then she said, if he wakes up, he's brain dead, Ashley. We can't do anything to save him. And I knew, it was like literally this I was in an alternate universe of my best friend is dead and my rock is gone. And I have a 4-year-old who I have to go pick up and tell her dad is dead. And so in that moment, it's like my whole world disappeared, Stephanie.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what all was going through your head, everything, and what all was going through, what all you were going through even for months after,
Oh, it was horrible. For months after, and here's the thing, here's the ironic thing. I'm smiling, but it's not funny. As I'm doing this work with my survivors, the thing I kept saying was like, I've never lived this kind of trauma. So that was like my energy to keep fighting. Like these people have had to live this and deal with trauma. I don't. So if I could use my platform and my strength that I have by never living that. And here I am in the midst of hell on earth. And I, as a human being, had no idea what I was supposed to be doing, right? All I knew was how to put my feet on the ground, brush my teeth sometimes, and maybe feed myself, right? That's all I knew how to do. And then I said, Ash, you got to stop it, right? I remember lying in bed one morning. I said, you got two options. You can shut down, which is what you want to do, which is normal, or you can step up because you have a baby who now not only needs you, but you're all she's got. So you got to get with it. So I said, okay, I don't know how to do this, but Dr. Ashley Wellman does. she tells people, right? I feel so bad because a lot of my survivors are probably like, well, that was, great advice, Ash. But I tell people how to heal after trauma. And so I started literally taking the pieces of advice I had written into these journal articles and said, okay, first I told them get professional help. So I did. I went and I did EMDR therapy, which was a miracle. I got my daughter and I into a grief home to get that professional help. And then, so that was wonderful. I also knew I needed to grieve as a mother and woman and wife by myself, but that it was also very, very important to grieve with Reagan. And I think that's been a blessing throughout the grief struggle, right? Because Reagan knows I struggle. She knows there's ugly days. She knows I get mad. She knows I miss him. She knows that I'm happy, that I have moments where I'm joyful, and that's okay. And so then when Reagan experiences those, she knows I'm safe to experience them with her.
Right.
But the greatest advice that I've ever given to somebody else that I actually took was that I had to find something new or an old passion that was new in my life, right? That I could fixate on, because the reality was the old life I wanted so badly. The old Ashley that everyone thought I was supposed to fit back into 2 weeks later, the funeral's done. It's time for you to live your life, right? You can't do that. Doesn't mean anything's bad or broken or you're not a good person, but I'm not the same woman, right? I'm a widow with a grieving baby and my world is gone.
Right.
So I'm so grateful for one of my best friends. He saw a picture of my daughter dancing with a skeleton on my desk. And he said, hey, Ash, take a break for a minute, because I wanted to dive right back into work, right? To be normal. And he said, you need to step back, but I think you could write a magical story about your daughter and her best friend who's a posable skeleton. And he said, because there's so much horror in that picture. There should be this fear and this thing that scares people. And yet for that baby, she looks at this scary thing as something that's beautiful and kind and loving and exciting. And he was like, there's something there, right? And what started really as this children's book and a way to heal and survive trauma started manifesting itself into so much more than that. Like the story fits my life too, right? Being a widow, that grief journey should be horrific, but it's real. And the reality is, if I step back and I try to understand it from a different perspective, right? Does it have to be always horror filled? Or could there be joy in some of the things that I'm forced to live with, right? Can I find joy in it and kindness and compassion and those types of things? So I started writing, and then I started to feel color again. I started to feel alive again. I started to I was creating a world that maybe my life wasn't feeling like that, but I was getting to create a world of magic and compassion and kindness. And I remember getting back into the classroom after bereavement leave and chasing this job that had been, very much alluded to a promise to me, chasing this job, and yet feeling like, this was a different chapter of my life. Do you know what I mean? And eventually it would come to a point where I did not get this job that I had moved to Texas for very complicated reasons. And I was devastated again, because I thought all I was capable of was this one narrow track of success. And I think COVID-19 is another thing I'm celebrating and thankful for, because I remember just having a moment to step away and having to take a break and pausing for a second. I was able to say, Ashley, right? It's fine that things haven't been fair and that they're traumatic and these things have happened and your career has, transformed, your life has transformed, all of this stuff. But you get to write the narrative of how that life looks. You get to be the one to write the next chapter of your life. And so no matter what anyone else says, no matter what life has thrown at you, right? It was on me to start like a different path. And then I was like, what if this children's book is not just a fun way to survive? It is a outlet of thriving for me and Reagan. And so that's kind of where we're at now, is we're on this journey together. And I've learned to have grace with myself and say, Ashley, you're capable of anything you want, right? I tell my daughter that, but it's really hard as an adult trying to break away from the traditional definitions of what does it mean to be successful. It means a 9 to 5. It means a big paycheck. It means, titles after titles. And I think what that does, instead of making us successful, is it pigeonholes us into this one solo definition of what your worth is. And when you lose that, or you don't want it anymore, life really feels like helpless. And so I don't know, I'm on this new path to say, hey, you know what, that that societal definition of success and your worth, that's one definition, and there's a million reasons you were good at that one definition anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They can translate to so many different things, and it's okay if you completely say, you know what, nice chapter, time to transition and write a new one. And then if that doesn't work, write another one.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. We get to be flexible.
Yeah, but I think the older we get, the scarier that gets. And we're told,
Yeah.
like, you really can't, or like, Ashley, what if that fails? Or Ashley, that's too risky. And it's like,
Right.
but I wouldn't tell my best friend, I wouldn't tell my daughter not to chase something like that. So
Yes.
yeah, it's just, man, life, the older we get, gets harder, but it also, I think, gives us permission to have the grace and the strength if we fight for it. You know what I mean? That I don't know we've ever had before.
Yeah. And you had sent me a preview copy of your book, and I enjoyed reading that. That was so much fun. I loved the story. I loved the purpose behind it. Like, the just that encouragement. And
Yes.
I think it was just so on point. Do you want to talk a little bit about the book itself?
I would love to. What do you think about the images, right? The illustrations were
Yes.
just pure art.
Oh, they were fun.
I'll have to brag about my illustrator as well. Yeah, I'd love to share the story with your listeners. So the book is called The Girl Who Dances with Skeletons, My Friend Fresno. So it really is this kind of coming of age children's book about the relationship between Reagan and her posable skeleton Fresno, but Fresno is very much alive in the book. And so it talks about not only how Fresno and Reagan met, but one of the lines that I love just says, I used to, I've learned that things that scare us are often just misunderstood. Mm-hmm. Take my best friend, for example. His name is Fresno and he's a skeleton, right? In that very moment, to me, the importance of that message was, we face things in the world around us, different races, different religions, different gender identities, all of these things that when we don't understand them, they're scary because they're different. And the reality is that as human beings, really none of those things dictate who we are. They don't make us scary. They actually make us a brighter, stronger force to be reckoned with. And when we surround ourselves with people who are different, we're better, right? Like, it makes us better and our lives richer. And so I wanted to say, like, first of all, things that are scary are often just misunderstood. And then talking about the joy that you find, like, sure, we're different. She's a little girl, he's a skeleton. So there's things like, I have blonde hair and he has, well, no hair at all, right? And it's these two things of like, it's okay to be different, one, because that's what makes you special. But once you realize, yes, we're different, but we're better together, look at all of the fun things we can do. So, like, all the adventures they go on, the painting, the acting, the photography, it goes into all the fun things that they do together because they love each other and care about each other. And that because they've set aside, yes, we're different, but we're also super awesome together, they're living this really fun journey. And at the end, Reagan tells the reader, she says, I've learned a lot from Fresno too, right? It doesn't matter if we look the same, we like the same things, or we come from the same types of families, because at the end of the day, right, we're better together, and our friendship is super special. And so my hope with the book, I'm glad you really said the message was powerful, because that was the point of this book, was that for me, there's so many children that have a situation, a condition, something that makes them different and unique and awesome, right? Yeah. So for Reagan, it just so happens to be the loss of her father. And, when events happen where she's one of the only children who doesn't have a daddy, there's a little bit of there's a lot of heartbreak, but there's a little bit of I'm different. Right. And it's as a mother, I think it's on me to let her know, yes, you are, but that's also amazing. And you know what, because of what you've been through, you are stronger and special and more empathetic and compassionate to other people. And so I talked to her about, yes, and it's okay to struggle with whatever the problem is, but then you have to step back and say, but I'm also incredibly special because of it, right? And so for children who might have a limb disability or a learning disability, or might be from a marginalized group, I want them to read Fresno and go, I'm beautiful and I'm special. And if people got to know me, right, and I get to know those around me, we're all going to realize that we're all pretty much the same, and that our
Mhm.
lives are better when we're not surrounded by people that look and act and think just like we do.
And that's so important for everybody to know. I mean, children and adults. There are a lot of adults that need to understand that too. That
Amen.
different is okay. I
Yeah, and
mean,
different
what
special.
a boring world it would be if we were all exactly the same and
Right.
thought
My space
exactly
is
the same
taken,
thing.
right? Like my
Yeah.
the Ashley's taken. So let's
Right.
embrace others around us. Yeah, and you learn so much from
Yeah.
people who aren't like you, you know? And for me, I always tease about growing up with a family who has Jewish heritage and those kinds of things, and craving plain dreidel and making potato latkes and these different things. I didn't have to believe necessarily the message. I was raised Christian, right? But it doesn't
Mhm.
mean that the traditions have to scare me. It was something that I
Right.
wanted so badly to be a part of my life, and it just made the holidays more enjoyable for our family, you know? So
Mhm.
yeah, it's just neat.
Yeah. So when I'm thinking about like the courage that it took you to step out and try something totally new and out of the realm of anything you had done before or thought about, that this is my path to success. What are some things that you had to maybe continually tell yourself um, along the way to keep your mind focused and not let negativity or doubt, you know, the just insecurity in stepping out into this new world of authorship? Like, what were some of the things that you really had to work on?
I think one of the things I really, really had to tell myself was that it's a process, right? And that there were going to be things that I had to learn, that I might make mistakes on, that may not be perfect, and that was okay. And so giving myself grace professionally as well, and saying this is new, right? And I'm some of immediacy. I'm a planner. I'm a perfectionist. I had to really set some of that stuff aside, because my poor illustrator will tell you that it's sometimes I get caught up in my head where it's like, I need this to be perfect. And the reality is that art is not perfect. Life is not
Right.
perfect. So the pressure you put on yourself and the joy that gets sucked away when perfection is the goal is something that I
Mm-hmm.
really had to learn about. My illustrator is Zach Kincaid, Thomas Kincaid's nephew. And he's, Thomas Kincaid was a painter of light, but
Mm-hmm.
Zach Kincaid is just this brilliant artist. And I remember he said, Ash, I'm not an illustrator, I'm an artist. And I said, I know that means the book is going to be an art book, right? It really is this gorgeously
Right.
illustrated book. And, I've learned a lot from him of saying, hey, I'm the artist. Perfection's not possible. Every time you open that book, there's going to be something that, could change. Doesn't mean it'll be better, but you could change it. So at
Right.
some point, you have to be confident and trust yourself. So that's one of the things I've learned. But the other thing I've learned is the words success and failure are so skewed in our society that
Yes.
they have been literally chains on my ankles. Like, what does it mean if I'm not successful? What does it mean if I'm not, if I fail at this? And so
Mm-hmm.
I've really had to step back and say, what does success mean to me? And at this point in my life, knowing that life isn't guaranteed, knowing that, if I don't take risk, my life's going to stay the same and I'm not happy the way it is right now.
Yeah.
If I'm not willing to make that sacrifice, I'm going to live the life that isn't making me happy. So for me, success is no longer saying if I'm not Dr. Ashley Wellman, the full professor with tenure, do you know what I mean? Then I've somehow failed as an academic, because I haven't. I've been successful as an academic, and I can go
Right.
ahead and put a check mark there and say, good, done. And then I can say, is it failure if, let's say, this is not going to happen because I have 10,000 copies sitting at my house that will not let this happen. But let's say I don't sell Fresno, right?
Mm-hmm.
And someone asked me, they said, Ashley, you're a single mom. What if this is a failure? What if you take on too much? And I said, okay, I get your concern. It's out of love. I get your concern. But the reality is that it's not a failure. It's done. I've
Yeah.
already done it. And so when you ask me, hey, 20 years from now, Nana, bring me, the book that you wrote. Mom says you wrote a children's book and she's in it. That's done.
Yeah.
And I've done that. My goal with that book is to help other children and in schools and add it to a curriculum. And so for me, failure doesn't have to be about the money that comes from it. Failure doesn't have to be about, like, this is the end all be all of all I'll ever get to do again in my life. It's saying I'm willing to take a sacrifice and a risk right now, right? Because the money doesn't come instantly. So I'm doing it because I need a change. I believe in myself and I want to use this book to help others. That's been my advocacy role my whole life.
Right.
I've also been an educator my whole life. So it's like I'm taking these skills from somewhere else that I've been successful at and saying, I'm going to try something brand new and trust myself to try. That is success. That's success, because it took every ounce of my energy and more to even try. And so to me, I'm like, I get it. If you know what, if it's not ultimately financially successful for my family, I can say what my next career gets to be, right? I can rebuild a career, and it can be a brand new career. But for now, I want to pursue health and happiness and purposeful living, because the trauma of knowing I could have been the one who passed away, or my husband did not wake up that morning and say, oh, today's my last morning. You know, that's not how we live life. And so for me, I'm saying, like, Ash, that type A perfectionist person who's miserable until blank happens, you got to change that, you know? And so to me, when I can do that, when I can live in the moment, which I'm not completely there yet, but when I can live in the moment and I can have ultimate grace with myself the same way I, you know, like we treat those around us, that's success. And success is trying and trusting and taking a chance on yourself. That's success. So those two things, rewriting what failure means, rewriting what success means. And then I think realizing perfectionism just doesn't work.
It doesn't. Man, perfectionism was one that I really had to overcome as well. And probably delayed my business by at least a year, trying to make things perfect before I launched, you know? And so now, though, I'll say I'm able to use that with my clients and say, like, let's just go do something, try something. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to have the website, just get a landing page up. Like,
that's
you know,
right.
it's like, you don't have to have it all done. Let's get something done and let's start, you know, just
and
get
then
started.
Celebrate those little moments.
Yes.
So let's say,
yes.
okay, so let's say I need a website. I need my landing page. I need this and that. I will be happy when I get the website complete. Don't do that.
No.
Be joyful when you finish the landing page and celebrate that for the night, right? And then start on page 2, right? It's okay. And so I think that's a big deal. And it's like, I remember one time I went on this Outward Bound trip. God bless them, but it was not my thing. I'm not a camping girl, whatever. But I went on this Outward Bound trip, whitewater rafting. And one of the things we did was we took an all-day hike up to this mountain, and then we're supposed to rappel off of a cliff.
Oh.
And I thought it would be smart to watch everyone else. My anxiety, I'm not going to get on a roller coaster. I'm not going to do any of that mess. So then they're like, oh, hook onto this and jump off this mountain. It'll be fun. And I'm going, I'm not doing that. So in my head, I started convincing myself that this was horrific and I was not going to make it to the bottom. And my legs were completely paralyzed. And I told the guy, like, I got to hike down. And he's like, we can't. That's not in the itinerary. Like, that's a day hike. You're rappelling down this mountain. So by the end of it, it literally was like, just jump. Like, I couldn't feel my legs. I couldn't do anything. I just had to jump. And I wish I had jumped first and not watched everybody else, because it's scary, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm like, don't wait, Ash. Your legs won't move. You know how this works. Just jump. Raise your hand first. Dive off. Just hope you make it.
Well, and I think what you were talking about as far as just reframing success and failure is so key to really it's resiliency is what you're after.
Right.
And so being resilient, learning that, like, it's okay to fail, because I think that we probably growing up and everything, like, it's ingrained in us as far as grades and all of this, that, like, do not fail, pass the test, pass the test. And I will say this, like, my daughter, the last 2 years in school, they used a different platform for 6th and 7th grade. And in that, you couldn't move on to the next lesson until you at least got an 80 on the test, which was fine. It was perfect because you got to take the test however many times it took to get there. So failure never entered into her mind. His test anxiety was an issue for her. And so this was huge for her to know that it's okay if I don't pass it the first time. I get to take it again. And that's what life really is it's okay if you fail the first time. Get up, try again, do something. Or maybe that's just not for you. Go try something else.
That's the thing I love too, is that like we have these artificial measures of
Yeah.
what success looks like. So when we're older, it really is like the paycheck, the title, how you shake hands at a party and what comes out of your mouth. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Those types of things say, oh, well, she's successful.
Yeah.
But the reality is that, you know who's really successful? The artist who lives in a van and paints and, you know, like doesn't know how he's going to feed himself that night, but he is just joyful and listens to music. And, you know, there's just so many different paths to success.
Yes.
And it's those artificial standards of the grade, the paycheck, the title, right, the degree. So many of my students, I'm a college professor, and there's so many of my students that I said, it's a disservice that you're chasing a college degree. You have talent beyond measure that does not fit into a 9-to-5 career you're chasing.
Right.
And you would be brilliant using your hands in a craft or trade or, you know, in art. And yet the response is, but like my parents, that's not a job. That's not what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's some of it too, is just realizing success and failure is something within you, and it's all in there. We're capable beyond measure. It's just, we've put such limitations on ourselves of what we're allowed to be. So jump off the cliff. Just go jump off the cliff. See what happens.
And that, you know, and that jumping, like that's a risk, right? And that's one of the things about entrepreneurship. There we go. There's inherent risk in doing your own thing, but there is inherent risk in going to a 9-to-5 job and realizing when you hit 70, you wasted your life because you didn't do anything that you enjoyed, just like you were talking about. Like that's a risk on its own, that you're going to live this life and realize when it's too late, really, man, I wish, like you have these regrets. I wish I had done this. I wish I had tried that. Now's the time. I mean, like when I think about just starting my own business, I had the dream for about 4 years before I started. And I think that there was a time in there that part of it was on purpose. So God had given me the dream and there was time for preparation, right? So it wasn't time to just go like, I got the dream, let's go. Like, it's like, I got the dream, now let's prepare to actually do it. And then I think that I got comfortable, kind of. And, and so while I had a major accident in 2017, where I was attacked by a dog, and I was, had 6 months of recovery and all of this. Well, the thought process I have through most of that recovery is my job as project manager. I've got to be able to type. I can't use my hand. Like I can't do that right now. My left hand wasn't open. I couldn't do anything with it. My right hand, I could type right-handed, with one hand, and it was slow. But I could see as I was, I'll say, negotiating with my husband, because I started out about the first half of it with like, every time I'd go see my doctor, I'm like, I got to be able to type. Like 85% of my job is typing. I got to be able to type because I was a project manager. It's all communication. It's all documentation, all of that, all on computer, all having to type. And then about the last half of it, after God got a hold of me in there and said, I gave you the skill of project management. You're definitely gifted in project management. Your identity is not project manager. I can use you anywhere. And I was able to then detach from, I got to get back to work to, okay, what are we going to do then? What happens if I can't write again,
I did that
I can't type again.
The exact journey. I mean, here I was fighting for my quote identity to return after the loss of Buddy. So here I am chasing this tenure track job again, right? And it was one that I'd worked so hard to prove myself. And then I don't get it. I got excluded from the search from a very small group of colleagues. I have great colleagues, but this one small group decided this was not in my cards. And I remember saying, if I'm not that, then who am I? If I'm not that, then who am I? And it was a panic because my whole worth and identity was in that room. Do you know what I mean? And in that institution. And it was a dream that I had. And it took me kind of getting knocked down, but it was like the book had already been there, right? I had already been paired with this brilliant illustrator. It was one of these things where I was like, oh, that's cute. That's kind of fun for me to do. And then as I'm saying, if not that, then who am I? And like I was saying, I'm an educator. Yeah. I'm an advocate. I'm a creative. I have been able to express myself as a professor. So I teach all the time and do talks and things like that. all of those skills transfer to any other thing that I want to be. So then it's the strength and the courage to say, okay. Yes, I used to be, Stephanie project manager.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that Stephanie project manager is only Stephanie project manager.
Yeah.
And so it really was for me going, oh no. And like, had I gotten that position, maybe had you not ever had trauma of being attacked by this dog, and maybe if the healing been quicker, what would I have missed out on? What beauty, right, would I have missed out on? And so I do think even in those moments where you feel lost or broken or being punished, you know what I mean? Yeah. You go, wait a minute. I think there were a lot of signs that this was not, one, what made me happy. This was not utilizing my skills the way I wanted it to, that my dreams were bigger than this, but I wasn't confident to jump. Well, when it all disappears, there's really not much else to worry about. So I think that there's mysterious ways that sometimes heartbreak actually allows us, or roadblocks actually are just signs that say, I've kind of been gently nudging you to do this. Now I'm gonna knock your legs out and see how you get back up, because I'm trying to tell you, get back up and do what you wanted, not what you have to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that last half of my recovery, I was like, okay, well, how I'd go into the doctor, I'd be like, and she'd be like, are you ready? Are you feeling like you're ready to go back to work? No,
well, I'm not.
How are you feeling? Like, I'm feeling great. And this was after I had a second surgery. I could now, like, I'd been going through physical therapy. I can now open my hand and close it. Like, it opens and closes now. It didn't, all those kind of things. And she'd look at me and I'd be like, no, I'm really hoping that my husband lets me start my business.
And are you sure that my hands aren't still hurting? Right? I don't know that I can go back. Don't worry. All of us academics are feeling that right now too, right? Like, are you sure we can't stay online?
Yeah. And so then like, she's like, that's, she'd be like, that's okay. I'm not ready to release you yet. I just always like to ask, like, how you feel? It's a way of asking, how are you feeling? And so that went on, like I said, for another 3 months after my surgery, my tendon surgery. And then by then it's 6 months. Well, short-term disability is over at that point, and you move to long-term disability. And when you're moved to long-term disability, you're technically no longer an employee of the company. So whereas in that 6 months, they had to at least give me a job back, right? It didn't have to be my job, but a job back in that 6 months of short-term disability. Once you're on long-term disability, they're like, okay, you're on long-term disability. When your doctor releases you, you are free to apply for a job, right? And, so I come home from that meeting, or get off the phone. My husband comes home that afternoon, and I've had this meeting with my now former employer, and, and I tell him what's up, and he's like, well, I wish we would have known that before we got out of short-term disability. And I'm like, yeah, it would have been nice to have a little heads up about it. But I don't think it would have changed the doctor's mind. She still would have me, she still wasn't ready to release me.
And had she released you a couple days earlier, would you ever have given yourself a chance to dream bigger?
No, I would have still been dreaming, but it would have been the easy way to just go right back to work. And so after having that meeting, going on long-term disability, like 2 weeks later, my doctor released me. And I'm sitting there like, wow. God, you did that to make sure I didn't go back to work, didn't you? That was all
and
you.
And then literally you're thrust in this thing that goes, well, time to start looking, thinking something else and doing something else. And
then I was able to have that conversation with my husband. I'm like, now's the time. I have the financial ability. I have the time availability. I was like, give me a year and let me see if I can make this dream of mine come to a reality.
Yes. And I would love to share with your listeners too. In that moment, I guarantee you were terrified.
Oh yeah.
Because for me, it was like, I think people sometimes go, oh, wow, she just had so much confidence in it that it was easy to make this, transition. It wasn't. It was horrifically terrifying.
Right.
But the reality was, there is not going to be a time where it's not, right?
Exactly.
Change is just scary. And so for me, it became this thing of saying, you know what, like we said, just jump, just do it. Some people aren't going to have financial stability to do it. Some people aren't going to have, the support behind them to do it. But I think it is taking that risk on yourself and saying, I'm scared. I'm not ready for this. I don't know what I'm doing necessarily. It's not perfect, let's do it.
We'll
Which
still do it
sounds
anyway.
crazy.
I mean, it's like my favorite definition of courage is feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
Yes.
So it's not being void of fear.
Yes.
And all of a sudden you like have all this confidence and courage.
No.
It's like recognizing you have the fear and deciding to do it anyway.
I told my daughter that just the other day. She said, I'm not brave. I'm scared to do this. And I said, that is brave. That is brave. I said, do you think if someone doesn't care and it's easy for them, that's brave to do something?
Right.
I was like, it's brave when you are scared, or when there is a challenge, or when it's not easy and you still do it. Like, that's bravery. That's courage. How cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And so now here I am, 3 years later from that point. And I will say, like, my husband still kind of feels like he doesn't know what I do, but
they never do. They never do.
He's not quite sure, and kind of thinking like, shit, like, I don't know. But the good thing is though, like, he still supports me in it. He's just like, but his thought process is very different than mine too. So like, I was willing to take the risk, and he's looking at going back to 2017 when we were having that discussion. Mm-hmm. He's like, but you're good at what you do. They liked you. Like, I'm sure you'll get your job back. Like, he's thinking the stability of the paycheck. Yes. You made good money. You liked the job. I'm like, yes, I did. But I also know that in 2016, 15 or 16, like, God gave me this dream for this other thing. Mm-hmm. And so I think now's my time to do it,
That's amazing. I think the people around us, they have the practical ideas. They worry for us. They want us to be happy and healthy, but we're the only ones who can define what that is. And for me right now, it's saying, guess what? I'm Ashley Wellman, a children's book author. And like we said, and if that, if you decide one day that this is not the path, it was the path for right now. It was the beautiful chapter for right now. And the power that we have to touch other people's lives, no matter where we are or what we're doing, that's like the ultimate magic behind all of it.
Yeah. And I think my encouragement to those that may be watching that, like, well, I can't just go quit my job, or, I don't have something like that. Like you said, they don't have that, the financial ability to just quit and pursue their dreams. You can still do it while working your 9-to-5 job. It takes more discipline. It takes discipline even when you do have all the time freedom. You've got your 8 hours a day to do it. It takes a lot of discipline. And it might take a little longer for the full thing to come about, but when you commit to it and you say, no matter what, this is going to happen. So, it may be making an agreement with your family that on Saturdays, I need 4 straight hours that I can just do this. I'm going to shut the door and I'm going to work on my business. Or after everybody goes to sleep, I'm going to spend an hour and a half doing this. Once the house is quiet, kids are in bed, husband's in bed, whatever, like, for this amount of time, I'm going to spend an hour and a half every night working towards my dream. And when you can schedule it and make it happen that way, and, getting your family on board with your plan so that they don't feel neglected or anything like that, they're not like, Mom's always working. My daughter says that now because she's like now been home with me all summer and all of this. And she's like,
see,
you need to take a break. I don't like, she's like, all of that. Just, it's funny because she has been like, you're always working. Well, I'm not. And what I'm thankful for is that because of this, because of taking the risk on this, because of taking the risk to do this, I have that time freedom that she wants me to have as well. So while I work a lot, I do pack my days in and try to get as much into my day as I can. When she's in school, I really try at 3:15 to not have anything. When it's time to go pick her up from school, like, I think one of the coolest, try for my day to not have anything else if I can.
Yeah. I think part of the coolest part for me, Reagan's 6 now, is having her see that, yes, I do work a lot. And yes, here's the nitty gritty, here's the good, the bad, the ugly, because even it's giving her skills too, to say struggle is real, life is real. And, and then she also gets to then celebrate and feel the successes too, because she knows it's not so easy. And so I think it's good for our kids to see the journey and the process and not just kind of the fruit of our labors, but to see the labor itself. So
Right.
your daughter's going to look back and go, whoa, my mom's a superstar when she starts realizing, some of those things. And I'm grateful my little one sees some of it because she's like, don't worry, mom. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's beautiful because you did it. And, she's like this little cheerleader for me. So I think it's good for them. You might be working a lot, but you're doing it out of a labor of love. You're helping other people and you're providing for your family. So I just think it's a beautiful recipe that sometimes our kids just don't understand, but it's good for her to see it.
It is. And there are times when she'll start to talk about like me, having a regular job or whatever. And some of that comes from her dad and wanting certain things in place and stability. Right. But she'll start talking about some of that and I'll be like, okay, I've done that. And you had to go to daycare. Now she's 13. She wouldn't have to, but I was like, you had to go to daycare. It was dark by the time I picked you up in the winter. I didn't get to, to participate all the time in like field trips and things like that. And even though she's at an age now that she doesn't have field trips, she has volleyball.
Oh,
she has basketball games that she cheers at. And I'm like, I'm able to be at every single one of those. Almost like I have missed very few. Because of something I had going on in the evening where I wasn't able to be there. She wants me to be able to pick her up from school. She wants me to be able to be at her games and everything. And I'm like, this allows me to do that way more than going back to the corporate thing that I was doing before would allow me to do. And once she realized, like we had this little period of time about 3 weeks, like over the summer where that was like really prevalent. She was pushing about it and stuff. Mainly because she was looking at these houses that are like exorbitantly expensive and wanting to move and all this. And our answer was like, yeah, we can't afford that, so she's like, well, go get a job. She's like, well, go get a job, go back to work and then we'll be able to afford it. And I'm like, no, even with my previous job, we would not have been able to afford it.
I would also like that house as well.
Right. Exactly.
You get a job and in 20 years, buy it for me. Thank you.
Yes. And so we went through that this summer. And so we did have several conversations and for me to be able to show her, like, I did finally break it down for her that this client means this much money. And when I have this many clients, then it's this much money coming in. And if I just go to this job, this is the cap.
That's it. And who are you at that job? For me, Reagan was seeing a woman who wasn't happy, who was sick, physically ill from some of the stresses at work. Yeah. And so it's like, it's not even just for me, and I know it's not for you either. It's not even for me, even what am I going to be able to make? It's who is a woman that's going to be present here? Because what I know can happen is illness and just an attitude that I didn't want to have and an absence of mind because I was so sad or upset about work. Right. And so it's like, okay, well then the paycheck can be great. But when you've lost yourself in that paycheck, there's no paycheck in the world to me worth that. So there's also the balancing of, yes, we might need to change some of the ways we live and function and do things, right? Buddy used to tell me before when he, with just the miscarriages, and he had said, Ash, we could even get a tiny home if you want and like go around the country and you wouldn't even have to work. You could be a barista or, do this and that. And I said, baristas work. That's not what I meant. But he was legitimately honest. You could do anything, Ash. Just tell me how I get a happy, healthy wife back. Because he's like, your job means nothing to me. And you think your daughter looks at you and says, oh, my mom is great because of, and then insert title. Yeah. It's not that. So some of us, I think, because of the pressure of providing for our family, we do keep ourselves in these titles and in these roles because of, quote, stability. I think Corona has shown the whole world, you can take stability and throw it out the window. Exactly. But even that paycheck, no matter how stable that is the sacrifice worth it if you find yourself again, or if you're able to live a healthier, happier life? And for me, it was like, yes. So when you talk about how could you do this, quote, money, and you insert money, one, the dream was never about money. I need to provide for myself. But my dream was to create a magical life for my daughter and give her a healthy mother. And I still get to help other people. So it's like, I'm in. Sign me up. The money will come one day. And whether it's from this journey or something else, I will get the money. Right now it's about Ashley is important too. And my skills can
Yeah.
transfer to something that's just based in joy, which is ironic because I don't think all of our careers are based in joy.
That's right. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you joining me today. This has been such a great conversation, and I hope that those of you who are listening and watching have really gotten a lot of inspiration from it to just really pursue what will make you happy, and not like that seems very cliche of do what makes you happy, but man, when you don't, everybody around you, including yourself, suffers. They
Amen.
really do.
Amen. Steph, can I tell your listeners where they can find Fresno?
Yes, please
Oh my
do.
goodness. Okay, so I'm going to show anyone who's watching. This is the book. I'm so excited. So Zach and
Yay!
I are very proud of our little baby. The Girl Who Dances with Skeletons, My Friend Fresno. You can actually get the e-copy, which is what I sent to Stephanie. You can get the e-copy today. So anyone who's not in the U.S. or my U.S. Eager fans can jump on and purchase the ebook. It's instantly downloadable as many times as you need it at home now. Or you can jump on the website www.myfriendfresno.com and you can pre-order the book, the plush, the puzzles. All of that will be shipped in October of 2020. So if you're listening later in the year, it's available for order in October 2020. But right now, go ahead and get that pre-order in so that you have a box on its way. And you can follow us on social media at My Friend Fresno.
Thank you so much. And y'all
Thank
go
you,
get the book.
Stephanie.
Support her. It is amazing. It really is a sweet book with a great message.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you for letting me share my story. And everyone, dream big. Go do it scared.
Ashley, it was so fun to talk to. And out of that huge tragedy in her life, what a blessing has come out of that, with being able to be there for her daughter and show her daughter how to have magical experiences. I do encourage you, please go buy her book, share it with your friends, and let's spread the love that is Fresno.